A few years ago, something happened within the U.S. Army that hadn't happened in decades. They began moving forward with a decision that, while seemingly subtle to the outside observer, would shift the very foundation of how American forces engage in small arms combat. It wasn't just a switch in rifles or a minor upgrade in parts, it was a complete transition in caliber, a decision to leave behind the 5.56 round that had defined American infantry for generations, and embrace a new cartridge, the 6.8 millimeter. While changes in sidearms have come and gone over the years, this move was unlike anything in recent memory. For many people, especially those who've grown up around military culture or own rifles themselves, 5.56 isn't just a type of ammunition, it's a symbol. It's the round that carried the U.S. through countless operations, from the jungles of Vietnam to the sands of the Middle East, and back again. The 5.56 has been around so long that it's more than a military standard. It's part of civilian life, gun culture, and even political discourse. Rifles chambered in this caliber have become a staple in countless homes and ranges across the country. There's familiarity in its recoil, reliability in its logistics, and accessibility in its price. It's been proven again and again. And because of that, this new shift isn't something the average enthusiast takes lightly. But here we are. The move to the 6.8 millimeter isn't hypothetical anymore. It's real. It's happening. And one of the clearest signs that this transition is fully underway came when the U.S. Army recently reached a key milestone: 100 million rounds of 6.8 millimeter ammunition now rolling into production. Getting to that number hasn't been simple. At the heart of America's ammunition supply chain sits the Lake City Army Ammunition Plant in Independence, Missouri. For decades, this plant has churned out everything from 5.56 to 9mm, 7.62 NATO, and even 50 BMG. It's not just a facility, it's the bloodstream of wartime readiness. But Lake City wasn't set up to handle 6.8 millimeter. To accommodate this shift, major sections of the plant had to be demolished and rebuilt from the ground up. New tooling, new lines, new safety protocols, everything had to be constructed specifically for this new cartridge. That kind of overhaul doesn't happen overnight. But now, after months of development, approvals, and planning, the production of 6.8 millimeter ammunition is no longer a theory. It's a reality. And that means a lot, not just for those in uniform, but for everyone who cares about readiness and responsibility in uncertain times. At the same time, private manufacturers have stepped up to support the effort. In particular, companies tasked with developing and supplying the next generation of U.S. Small arms have already hit their target of producing 100 million rounds per year. That kind of industrial commitment sends a clear signal that this caliber isn't a passing experiment. It's being adopted at scale. And when production ramps up to that degree, it creates ripple effects that reach well beyond the battlefield. For civilians, it may not mean much today, but over time, high-volume production tends to translate into better availability, lower costs, and more confidence in the long-term viability of a platform. What's important to understand is that switching calibers isn't just about putting a new round in a magazine. It touches everything, from training manuals to range standards, from weapon maintenance to battlefield logistics. A change in ammo cascades through every layer of how the Army operates. That's why this move to 6.8 millimeter is such a massive undertaking. It's not simply a performance upgrade. It's a redefinition of how soldiers engage, how they carry their gear, and how support systems are built around that engagement. The rifles and machine guns designed to fire this round aren't just slightly modified versions of the old ones. They're part of a next-generation approach meant to push the edge of capability forward. More range, more penetrating power, and a design philosophy that anticipates future threats rather than reacts to current ones. But of course, every change brings friction. As this transition has moved forward, there's been no shortage of debate among veterans, shooters, and military enthusiasts. Some argue the benefits of the 6.8 millimeter don't outweigh the cost. They point to heavier rifles, higher chamber pressures, and the reduced number of rounds a soldier can carry. Others worry about durability, how barrels will hold up under the intense demands of combat, especially with hotter, faster cartridges. And then there's the logistics. Anytime a military changes ammo types, it creates ripple effects across supply chains, depots, and even allied cooperation. Those concerns aren't misplaced. In fact, they're part of what makes this moment so significant. When a move of this scale is met with skepticism, it forces the system to justify itself, to prove that the change is not just bold, but wise. And yet, despite the pushback, the gears are turning. The new rifles are being delivered. The facilities are being built. The training is underway. And now, the ammo is flowing. 100 million rounds isn't the finish line. It's just one milestone. But it's a powerful signal. It means the shift is no longer theoretical. For units receiving these weapons, this is real. For the people behind the scenes building these tools and writing the doctrine, it's a validation. And for the civilian world watching closely from the outside, it opens the door to consider what comes next. For many, there's still a deep loyalty to the 5R56 platform, and for good reason. It's lightweight, easy to shoot, and backed by decades of refinement. The modularity of rifles built around it makes them flexible for all kinds of use, from home defense to hunting, training to sport shooting. Ammo is relatively cheap, available in bulk, and there's a sense of familiarity that brings comfort, even if the 6.8mm becomes widespread within the military. It's not likely that the 5.56 will disappear anytime soon, but the interest is growing. People are curious. They want to know what this new cartridge can do. They want to see if it lives up to the hype, if it really brings more effective range or better penetration, and they want to know if it's sustainable, not just in the lab, but in the field, under stress, in dirt and rain and recoil. That's the big picture. What we're witnessing isn't just a technological update. It's a pivot in strategy, logistics, and readiness. It's about preparing for the next fight, whatever that may look like. And whether you believe the 6.8mm is the right answer or not, there's no denying that this level of industrial mobilization, this commitment to building infrastructure around a new standard, means the decision has momentum. 100 million rounds is a statement. It says, this is where we're going. And once that direction is set in motion, it becomes harder and harder to turn back. Of course, not everyone is on board, and that's understandable. Anytime a new round is introduced, it brings up memories of past transitions, some smoother than others. There are still those who remember the move from 30-06 to 7.62 NATO, and then from 7.62 to 5.56. Each time, there were promises of improvements, arguments about effectiveness, and plenty of frustration about adapting to something unfamiliar. This new chapter feels similar in many ways, yet it's happening in a far more complex world, one where military readiness, manufacturing logistics, and public perception all move faster, louder, and under constant scrutiny. People are right to question whether this is the best use of resources, whether the rifles will hold up, whether the ammo will be available, whether the performance gains are worth the costs in weight, complexity, and long-term support. These questions don't make someone cynical. They make them engaged, and engagement is necessary if the goal is to create a fighting force that's both modern and resilient. What's also interesting is how this shift may eventually shape the civilian side. We've seen before how military adoption influences the commercial market, from surplus gear to training standards to cultural perception. With 6.8mm now in high-rate production, it's likely only a matter of time before civilian shooters start seeing it more frequently, not just in specialized rifles, but perhaps eventually in broader offerings. It won't happen overnight. The cost is still high, and the availability is limited. But history suggests that once a military cartridge becomes established, civilian interest tends to follow. For now, many will hold on to what they already know and trust. The AR platforms chambered in 5.56 still dominate the landscape. They're flexible, they're customizable, and they're supported by an ocean of parts and knowledge. The 6.8 might not replace that. It might just live alongside it. A tool for those who want to experiment, to prepare, or to stay aligned with future developments. The real value in this moment is recognizing what it represents. When a major institution like the U.S. Army commits to a change of this magnitude, it sends a ripple across the broader culture. And whether you agree with it or not, it shows a willingness to evolve. Readiness isn't just about holding on to what worked before. It's about anticipating what might be needed next. That doesn't mean we throw away everything that came before. It means we learn from it, build on it, and test new ideas until they prove their worth. The 6.8mm round, the new rifles, the expanded production, None of it guarantees superiority, but it does reflect a commitment to progress, and that's something worth noting. So, when we talk about 100 million rounds of new ammo, it's not just a number, it's a marker in a long journey. A signpost that says, "We're investing in what's next." That doesn't mean everyone will agree on the path. Some will choose to wait and see, others will dive in early, and many will stay exactly where they are, content with what already works. That's the nature of transition. What matters is that people stay informed, keep thinking critically, and don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Because in the end, whether you carry a new rifle or an old one, whether your ammo comes from a surplus bin or a cutting-edge facility, the mindset behind it, readiness, responsibility, and resilience, is what really counts. And that's something we all have a stake in.